Hi everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stewart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial we're going to paint this gorgeous little cherry blossom cove. I'm going to teach you how to paint a background sky and realistic clouds, how to blend lovely tropical water and make it look really nice and realistic, how to use darker colours to bring things forwards and how to use blues to push things back into the distance, how to paint a really pretty cherry blossom tree with different types of brushes and colours, and then how to put detail over the top of your underpainting to create realism so you can paint this little gorgeous cherry blossom cove in acrylic paints. So let's get into it. So a nice and easy tutorial today. You're going to need the following colours. They are titanium white, cad yellow, cad orange, rose pink, cad red, turquoise, chromium oxide green, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, raw umber and ivory black. Now I've got a canvas that I've stained raw sienna that I've used cobalt blue to create an outline. We're going to have 1/3 of the canvas as sky and clouds. We're going to have a nice cherry blossom tree hanging over a cliff top. We're going to have some far off cliffs in the distance. We're going to have a lovely tropical water that's going to get more shallow as it comes towards the viewer, some nearer rocks so I can teach you depths of field, and then we're going to have some wildflowers as we look over top of the cliff. So if you'd like to pause the video and copy down the outline, feel free to do so, and we'll start by painting the sky. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get some cobalt blue and some cerulean blue, and we're going to add a dot of red, just literally a dot. So I'm just going to get a pinprick of red because we don't want to turn it too purpley. So cerulean blue, cobalt blue, a dot of red and plenty of white, so we get this nice dark pastel blue. And this is the colour we're going to use to frame our painting. So we always make our corners darker and we always make the top of our sky darker than the horizon, and this just frames our painting and just makes it look nice and realistic. So by using a darker shade of blue in the top corners, we can frame the painting, and we can also just make our sky look more real. So we're just going to block in about 1/3 of the sky in this darker blue. So there we go. Let's just get some more water and some paint. So we'll do about 1/3 down, not too much. We just want to make the top edges all nice and dark. And then as we come down, we're going to get lighter. So we want a different shade of blue because the horizon is always lighter on the sky than the top of the sky. So what we're going to do, we're going to get some white. So loads of white to make it nice and light. And we're going to get some cerulean blue to make it nice and pastel. And we're going to just colour in the horizon, the opposite. So if you imagine the top of the painting is nice and dark, and the horizon where it meets the ocean is nice and light. So we're just going to paint about 1/3 at the bottom. So the complete opposite. So really easy. Don't worry if you go over your cobalt blue outline. The great thing about cobalt blue is it shines through so we can see it. But we just want to kind of paint the bottom 1/3 of this sky, this nice pastel blue. So once you've done about 1/3 at the bottom, what we're going to do, we're going to link the two areas together. So it's a bit of a jump between the light and the dark. So we want to create an in-between blue. So all we're going to do is we're going to mix them two colours together. So just get some cerulean blue and white, and some cobalt blue, cerulean blue, a dot of red and white. And all we're going to do is we're going to mix our two shades. Problem with acrylics, they dry because obviously they get dry very quick, unlike oil paints. So if your two mixes dry up, just do what I'm doing and just mix the two together just with some fresh paint. And we're just going to create a medium blue, so not too dark, not too light, in between. And all we're going to do is just create X shapes with our brushes and just blend the two areas together. So now I'm happy with that colour. As I say, it's in the middle. I'm going to swap to a bigger brush because it's just much easier to blend and it's much easier to cover distances using a bigger brush. And all I'm going to do, as I say, I'm just going to blend the two areas together. So I'm just going to make that middle blue go into the darker blue. And I'm just going to do the same coming downwards, going into the lighter blue. So it's dark at the top, light at the horizon. Easy peasy. So as you see, look, it's a bit too dark there. So we're just going to go over the top. Go create our X shapes with our brush. And we're just going to blend it into the next colour. We just want to kind of make our transitions look seamless. So the good thing about blending, it tricks the eye and you don't notice the jumps in colour. So if you're like me, and because acrylics are water based, you have lots of streaks or lots of horrible marks in your painting, you can always just dry it with a hairdryer, and you can always just go over the top with the same paint. So I'm just doing that. I'm just doing the exact same technique that we did, but I'm just doing it twice. And I'm just fast forwarding the footage because it's the exact same thing that I just showed you. I just don't want you to sit through here for 5 minutes while I do it again. So all we're doing, we've got darker shade at the top, a lighter shade at the bottom, and in the middle, and in between colour. And all I'm doing, I'm just reapplying the paint just so I get rid of all those horrible brush marks and watery marks. So it's nice and light at the bottom, nice and dark at the top. So when you're happy with it, you can put back your tree. So I can see the outline underneath very faintly. So I'm just getting some cobalt blue and I'm just putting back my tree. And then what we're going to do, we're going to start painting some clouds on the right hand side. So we're going to have some cherry blossom here on the left hand side. So I don't want to put too many clouds on the left. So we're going to have them on the right hand side to give the viewer something to look at. So what I'm going to do, while I've got that middle colour blue, I'm just going to add a lot of white to it. So just plenty of white and some cerulean blue and cobalt blue. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to start making some low forming marshmallowy clouds. So the reason we're not using pure white yet, we've still got a hint of cerulean blue and cobalt blue in, is we're going to try push these clouds really far back and make it look like they're blending into the horizon. So where you have low clouds, sometimes on the horizon you get this sort of really nice sort of wispy look that makes it look like the ocean and the sky are sort of merging. And then as you go up, you tend to get these big clouds that kind of go a bit diagonal and look nice and fluffy and chunky. So at the bottom, where it's near the horizon, we're going to have sort of clouds going just sort of straight across. And then as they get more up into the sky, we're going to make them chunkier and make them look like they're going a little bit more diagonal. So these ones are at the bottom, so we're going to make them just going flat and across. And as I say, I don't want to have too many on the left because we're going to cover it up with cherry blossom. And then all I'm going to do, I'm just going to smear areas around this cliff top and right at the horizon, just so it looks all misty and it looks like it's fading out. So the ocean looks like it's fading out into the distance. So I'm just softening it up with that colour. All it is white, tiny bit of cerulean blue and a tiny bit of cobalt blue. And let's have another one over here and a little one here. Just sort of breaking away from the big ones, make them nice and fluffy. And then as I said with acrylics, sometimes they dry really flat, and because we've got that lovely blue underpainting that we've just blended for our sky, by adding this whitey blue over the top, sometimes it just absorbs it. So after about 5 minutes, it looks really flat. So if you want to go over it a second time, feel free to do so. To get your colours much more vibrant with acrylics, sometimes you just have to. So if you find that areas of your painting just absorbs the colour and dries a bit flat, and you want it to look a bit more realistic and sparkle a bit more, and have a bit more vibrancy in your colours, just go over the top. So all I'm doing, I've wiped away 90% of the paint and I've got hardly any paint, and I'm just using the side of that brush, just really gently pushing against the canvas just to get a nice chalky outline, just to make this all nice and soft, make it nice and wispy. And then I'm going to get some titanium white, so just pure white. I'm going to wipe away most of the paint, and I'm just going to glaze over the top. So I'm going to have the sun come in from the right hand side. So all I'm going to do is all the sort of clouds on the right, so if you imagine the sunlight's coming from the right, I'm just going to make them sparkle a little bit in the sun. So I'm just going to use a little bit of white on the tips of the right hand sides of all of them. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just going over the top, and I'm just almost colouring them in. Really, really easy. Pushing really gently with that brush, and just on the right hand side, and I'm just letting it fade into the light blue. And it just looks like areas of the clouds that are just getting a little bit of sparkle in the sunlight. A little bit of highlights. And again, look, if it dries flat and it doesn't look as bright in areas, just go over the same. I know it's repetitive. I know it's a bit long-winded. I know most people at home, especially in today's age, don't have any patience and fast forward everything. But this is the tricks that work, okay? So just by going over the top, you can just make areas look brighter, give them more definition. That is the realism. It's just having patience. So look, just by adding a second lot of paint, you can make areas much brighter, much more vibrant, give them highlights. So we've got these clouds on the right hand side. So it's a nice pushback cloud. And we've got a nice blended sky and this nice faded horizon already. So well done everyone for doing your sky and your horizon. So now we're going to do these cliff tops, and I'm going to teach you how to use cobalt blue here to make it look really far into the distance. So we're going to add some cerulean blue to our cobalt blue, and we're going to make this lovely royal blue, which is an in-between colour, and we're going to add a little bit of white, just a little bit, just to make it a little less harsh. And we're going to create this nice light blue, which is sort of a hum off the sky colour. So if you imagine the sky, it's casting its colour onto these far off cliffs, and cause the far off cliffs are near to the sky, it's going to make them seem, because it's far away, that they're blue. It's like a trick your eyes do. So by using this colour, we can block in this far off cliff top, and by making it this lovely blue, it makes it look far, far away. So it's just a little trick. So if you're ever painting mountains or cliffs or far off buildings, and you want to make them look like they're really far away and you've got a blue sky, you just use this colour and it makes it look like it's off in the distance. So how easy is that? How cool is that? So look at that, that's worth a like and a subscribe if I've ever seen one. So that's really, really easy. And then we're just going to get a bit of this chromium oxide green, and we're going to mix it into our blue because it's a bit bright. It's like a light green. So by adding a bit of cobalt blue to it, we can make it nice and dark and make it a little less saturated. So we're sucking a bit of the colour out and making it more blue. And we're going to add a little tiny bit of white. Just a tiny bit. There we go. Let's just test it out here. Yeah, that's perfect. And what we're going to do, we're just going to leave a tiny gap at the top where we're going to have a bit of that blue glow. And just underneath it, we're just going to make a smudge. And we're just going to kind of create the illusion of far away cliff tops, but far away trees. So the reason we're sucking a bit of the colour out of them, we want to make them look blue and far off into the distance. So that's why we've got that cobalt blue. And we're leaving a little gap just at the top, just so that cobalt blue outline can shine through. So this is all the far away pine trees and nice trees you get. There we go. So that's so easy. And then we're going to get this colour, which I've got pre-mixed, but I'm going to teach you how to make. It's a light brown. So we're going to get raw umber brown and plenty of white. So raw umber brown and plenty of white. We're going to add a tiny dot of cobalt blue just to make it more grey. and a little bit of orange just to warm her up. Just a little bit of this cad orange just to warm her back up. Mixed together and you've got the exact same colour. So it's this lovely cool sort of brown, this pastel light brown. So white, raw umber, cobalt blue, little dot of cobalt blue and a little dot of orange. And you get this lovely sort of pastel brown. And what we're going to do, we're going to create the illusion. We're going to leave gaps of the blue and we're just going to use a fine liner. And we're going to create the illusion of far away cliffs. So again, because it's got a bit of cobalt blue in it, it pushes it back. And when you have places like the Mediterranean and these lovely sort of seas and like cliff tops, you have this sort of really, really nice sort of, I don't know what sort of colour it is. It's kind of like the colour of brick, like a sandy colour on the cliffs. And then you kind of have the grass and the trees at the top. So we're just using this colour just to create the illusion of cliffs and boulders in the far distance. We're just leaving plenty of that little blue just so it looks like texture. It's a little trick. And then all I'm doing, I'm getting some white and some cerulean blue that we use for the clouds. And I'm just putting some little dots. And these could be some hotels, bars and villas. Why not? So you don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's just a little bit of added detail. So these could be the trendy parts of the town where everyone goes out and parties. So this could be Ibiza or something like that. And everyone's going clubbing. So all I'm doing, I'm just using the sky colour. And these could be some faraway little villas and bars and stuff like that. And then all I'm going to do, I'm just going to make those cliffs a little bit bigger. So I'm just getting some of that brown that we just mixed. And I'm just extending them upwards into that green. Just to make my cliffs look more prominent and higher. We don't want to have lots of detail. It's just a trick of the eye. We just want to make it look like it's far off into the distance. So again, the same trick. I'm just leaving plenty of that cobalt blue to shine through in between, just so it looks all texturized. And there we go. We got our far off cliffs in the background with some cool hotels and things. So now we're going to work on our ocean and we're going to make some tropical water. I've got some tape. All I've done is I've stuck the tape nice and straight, and then this one I've made a tiny bit, literally like a few millimeters down, because obviously that cliff's sticking out. And what we're going to try to do, we're going to have really deep ocean water here in this corner, because that's going to be far off into the distance, so it's going to be darker. And then as we come to the bottom corner, we're going to make it more shallow. So we're going to go from like a dark blue into a turquoise into that light brown that we just mixed. So I'm going to teach you how to do that. So the first things first, we're going to do deep water. So we're going to get cerulean blue and cobalt blue, and we're going to make a nice blue again. A nice royal blue. We're going to add some white. So very much like the same colour as we did for our cliffs. So cerulean blue, cobalt blue and white. And we're going to use a big brush just to block her in. We're going to go right up to the tape. And we're just going to again create far off, really nice blue deep water. So if you think this area off by those cliffs and far off into the distance, it's ridiculously deep, so it's this nice dark blue. So if you go right up to tape, you get a nice straight horizon. So we want to do that. And as I say, if you use a big brush, it just makes your life so much easier because you can cover more distance. So as we come more into the less deep water, into the shallows, we're going to create this blue, which is all it is cerulean blue and a little bit of turquoise. So I've got it pre-mixed, but all it is cerulean blue and a tiny bit of turquoise. So cerulean blue and turquoise. and you get this nice bright blue. And we're just going to create a sort of in-between blue. So again, we just want to work on the transitions and just try to blend it into the darker blue. So take your time, use a blender brush or use a big brush if you find that helps at home. And then as we come down, we're just going to make it even lighter. So if you imagine we're getting more and more shallow, so out here is really deep, and then we're coming into this lovely cove, into this sort of beach area. So let's just block in this corner. It's such a lovely blue, this. It's so pretty. It's like electric blue, I would call it. So let's just blend it here. My brush was a bit dirty, I think. There we go. No one would notice. So we're going to get even more shallow. So we're going to go straight into turquoise now. So we've gone from this sort of electric blue into turquoise. So again, we're just getting shallower. The water's getting clearer. It's getting brighter as it comes into the shore. So this little technique is really, really good when painting tropical water or really, really clean beaches. So you have these in things like the Mediterranean, places like all around the world. So you can use this recipe for all tropical water if you want to. So we've got this nice turquoise. Whoops, got a little bit of paint up here. Just wipe it off. And as I say, if you get streaks or anything in your underpainting, you can always do what we did with the sky. You can always give it 2 coats. Now, as we come more down here, we're going to get more brown because this is going to be sort of sand. So we're going to have a mixture between this colour, which was raw umber, white, a little dot of cobalt blue and a little dot of orange. So we're going to have a mixture between that colour and turquoise because it's going to be sand and shallow water mixing together. So we're going to mix those 2 colours and a little bit of white. So turquoise and that nice brown. And we're just going to block in this area. So this is where all the sand is sort of mixing into the shallow water. And you kind of get a mixture between the 2 colours. I think it's a little bit too musty and a little bit too dark. So what we're going to do, we're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to put a little bit of cad yellow and a little bit more white, I think. Just to make her look a bit brighter. Still a bit of that brown. But by adding a little bit of yellow and white, we can just hotten her up a bit. Heat her up. So there we go, that looks a bit prettier. So we're just going to mix these 2 areas together. So this is all the shallow water and sand sort of mixing together. We're going to go right down into our bottom right corner. Now, as I say, it's a bit of a jump between the turquoise and that colour. So we're just going to mix again these 2 colours together. And we're just going to try and blend that with a tiny bit of white. So again, we're just trying to make the jumps in colour not look so noticeable. So look, it's a big jump between turquoise and this sand colour, isn't it? So we're going to have to blend that area. So let's get some more turquoise and try to blend the 2 areas together. Now sometimes with acrylics, as I say, because they're water based, they do dry really quick, but sometimes it just takes a while. And when you put on paint, it doesn't quite mix. It's kind of not looking that great. So there's a little trick. You can dry your work with a hairdryer and then just apply the paint over the top and make it look prettier. So this area here is just, it's not blending. It keeps just merging together. It's just not happening. So I've just dried her. So as I say, look, it's just, there's too much of a jump. So I'm going to dry her. And then now the canvas is dry, if I get some turquoise and a clean brush, I haven't got any of that mucky yellow on it. Look, I can make this area just so much more vibrant. So it's just the same as what we did with the sky. It's just a cheat by just going over the top. And then look, by easing up on the pressure as I go into that blue, I can then get that electric blue which was cerulean blue and turquoise, I can just blend this area really, really gently so the transitions just look a lot smoother. I'm going to make this area at the top here on the right just a little bit more electric blue, a little bit lighter, because I think it's just a little bit harsh and dark. So I'm just going to make this area a little bit brighter. So again, just really softly blending it. Just going up to that tape. Just easing up on the pressure as I move across. So I want there to hardly be any notice between the jumps in colour. So if you find that I go too quick, or you find that I'm too slow and boring, just fast forward it or pause the video. You can go at your own speed. You don't have to always paint in one go as well. If you find something is hard, you can always take a break and come back to it. So I'm just using some of that electric blue just to come up here into the deeper ocean water. So as I say, I just want to make it look really nice and smooth so you don't notice the jump in colours. Just here in the middle. Don't forget, guys, if you want anything you want to learn, I'm trying to cover a couple of points in this video for people. So one is creating distance in paintings, and another one was to paint a cherry blossom tree. So if there's anything you want to learn, I can always make a little landscape or a little tutorial and try to cover things. So this is just a little scene from my imagination, because you don't tend to normally get cherry blossoms on cliff tops, but why not? I think it covers a few points in this video, and it's a nice little cove we can do. And then we're going to remove our tape, and we should have a beautiful straight horizon. Now I've left a little gap just here on my faraway cliffs because I'm just going to make it a little bit more chunky. That's just coming into the ocean, and the ocean is a bit more further back. So I'm just using some of that cerulean blue and cobalt blue and white just to block back in. And if you ever get any tape, pull up a bit of your paint, just paint over it. It takes 2 minutes just to correct something. Just have the patience to go back. Don't get annoyed. I know with me, I get the rage a lot in paintings. Things go wrong. But a lot of painting, as I say, is trying to teach yourself mentally not to react and to chill. So it's good for your patience. It's good to relax. There's nothing you can't fix. Even if it's a mess, you can always paint over it. So I'm just going to get some brown. I'm just going to, where we've put that blue in, I'm just going to come down to the edge, put back some cliffs. And if it looks a bit bright or anything, you can always do what us professionals do and use your finger to smear it. So I do that all the time. Look, I just soften it with my finger like a pure professional. So let's get some raw umber brown, and let's teach you how to create things that are nearer. So we're going to get some raw umber brown and some cobalt blue, and we're going to create some really harsh shadows on these rocks. So these rocks, certain areas are going to be in the shade because the sun's far off into the distance. So these areas would be really dark and they're very near, so they would be casting quite a harsh shadow. We don't want to use black because black brings things really close. We want to have these sort of still a little bit far away from us. So by using raw umber and blue, we can create a really harsh shadow. And by using this darker colour, what it does, it starts to bring it closer to the viewer. But what it also does is it starts to push those cliffs that we just painted in cobalt blue off into the distance. So now we're starting to bring these ones towards us, And can you see how those cliffs by our sky are pushing into the distance? So we're just going to get some orange and some cad red, and we're going to make a brick sort of colour. So we're going to get plenty of white, so orange, a little bit of cad red. We're going to make the colour of, say, a brick. And all we're going to do is we're just going to block in our rocks. So this is sort of the warm sort of stone colour where the sun's beaming down on these rocks. And you get this sort of nice sort of bricky tan colour. And the reason we're using orange and red is to give it a bit of heat, look like it's in the sun. So let's do the same for this one. And then because that's nice and warm, we're going to have other areas that are getting really bleached in the sunlight. So all we're going to do is we're going to get lots of white. First, I'm just going to get some of that dark brown, actually. I'm going to get some of that raw umber, and I'm just going to have some little rocks just here in the water. So let's have some just bobbling out of the water. Let's have a few harsh rocks. It's going to be a nice little cove. So all it is this raw umber I'm using just to create little stones in the water. And then our brick colour, all I'm going to do is just get loads of white and add it to it. And I'm going to make a really bright tone that is all this sort of stone that's getting bleached in the sunlight. So especially on the outer edges, the sun, if it's coming down from the right, is going to be bleaching these stones. So I'm just using that colour just to create the illusion of pebbles and boulders coming down here into the cove. So this outer edge will be getting bleached in the sun. There we go. And then let's do this one, same technique. So the outer edge, just getting a sharp light. Let's have a few boulders here. A few coming into the water. And then I'm just getting some raw umber brown, just like we did with the pebbles in the water. It's not as harsh as the raw umber and cobalt blue. And I'm just putting some little grooves and shadows in between, just to interlink it. Now can you see now, look how they look closer and how the cobalt blue tricks your eyes and pushes it back. So that's how you create depth. So if you want to create realism in your painting, it's not necessarily the skills, it's the colours. So that's why I keep trying to teach everyone. It's the colours. Learn colour mixing. So we're going to get some of that cobalt blue and brown. We're going to add a tiny bit of green to it. So cobalt blue, brown, and a tiny bit of green. And we're just going to create a nice flowery ledge here on the corner. Now you don't tend to get flowery ledges on clifftop corners. But hey ho, we are going to make it because we're going to make a cool painting tutorial. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a shadow colour first. And again, this is going to bring this cliff top forward and bring it closer to the viewer. So imagine we're standing on this cliff top looking out into that bay. And we want to darken our left corner because we want to sign it. So we always try and make the left hand corner nice and dark because we're going to sign it in that bad boy. So it's almost black. It's not quite black. But very, very dark and very, very shadowy. Almost like a silhouette. So we've got our corner all blocked in. So that's nice and dark. And that brings it closer. So now we're going to swap to a fan brush. And we're going to use some of this chromium oxide green. Which is a sort of bright green. We're going to add a tiny bit of cad yellow to the mix. We're going to mix it up. Here we go. And I'm just going to have one with a little bit of blue in it, a little bit of cobalt blue. So I've got a light shade and a dark shade. So one for highlights, one for shadows. So let's use the cooler one first. And all we're going to do, we're just going to turn our fan brush upright. And we're just going to create the illusion of long wild grass. So we're just turning the brush upright. Fan brushes are really good for painting grass. And then just as we come down, and I want to make the grass less long, I'm just going to use it across the way and just splat against the canvas. But they're really excellent fan brushes for creating texture. So they make your life really easy for painting anything like grass, fur, anything texturized, bushes, leaves, anything like that. And I'm just using the edge, just on the edge of the cliff top to make long grass, so it just doesn't all look flat. And then I'm getting some of the yellow and green, some of the lighter matte mix, and I'm just literally just going over the top. It's all kind of blurring, but don't worry, we'll create some separation. I'm going to leave the bottom left corner deliberately dark because I want to sign my signature there. So I'm just going around it. I'm just leaving a little gap. And again, just going over the edges. Just so it looks like that grass is hanging over. And I'm just going to get some of the actual green itself, none with any yellow or anything. And I'm just going to put in some lines. By just having different shades, it just creates texture. That's all we're doing. So we're using 3 different colours. We've got a cold, a hot and a medium one. We're just trying to create different bits of grass in different shades of the light. And again, it just adds to texture. And if the light is coming from the right, just the right hand side of it, that's why we've used a bit more yellow to make it look like it's a bit more in the sun. And this left hand side will be a bit more in the shade here. And then I'm just going to get some black, and I'm just going to put some division in between some of these lines. So I'm just using that really sharp edge of the brush just to create some harsh shadows. And the reason we're using black is because this is in the foreground. This is as close as it can be to us. So imagine our feet, we're standing on this cliff top looking down at this cove. It's very, very far from the sunlight. And obviously it's a bit harsher in the light. So we can use this darkest darks and bring this really close towards us. So look, I'm just creating little bits of texture, just so it looks like shadow in between the grass. A lot of this we're going to cover up with wildflowers, but it's just, if you learn it, it's a really easy thing to learn. And then we're going to let that dry. And we're going to mix some yellow and orange. So some cad orange and some yellow to make a peachy colour. We're just going to add some white just to make it nice and pastel. I'm just going to use a smaller brush. So I've just got this elongated brush, but I'm just using the sharp edge of it. And I'm just going to create little splats with the end of the brush. And this is just going to be some wild flowers. So the secret when painting flowers is to try to have them all different heights and at all different angles, and just try to, again, I keep saying this on the channel, try to have a bit of variety. Don't all have them the same. So some of them you can have big and chunky, and some you can have small. But if we have them at different heights and at different angles, it just makes them look more realistic. And what we're going to do as well, we're going to have some going over the edge. So you have some of these flowers hanging off over the edge. There we go. So if I zoom in so you can get a better look. So all I'm doing, I'm just pushing my brush to create little sort of circles. And these are the tops of these wild flowers. So as I say, you don't really tend to get on sort of rocky cliff tops, you don't tend to get wildflowers, but why not? We can make anything out of our imagination. So why not create some funky flowers, and I can teach you all how to do it. And another little trick is what I'm doing here is just have some going off the edges. So it just looks like they're peering over. So at the bottom of your painting, or the corners of your painting, you can always just add a few. So just have a big one here. Let's have a few bunched together. Look, have some coming over the edge, just so it looks like they're poking right through. Now it's up to you. You can stick with one colour, so you can choose what your favourite colour is, and you could have different colour wildflowers. I think what we're going to do is have some orange ones first. And I think we're going to do some little snowdrop ones, sort of like little daisies. So let's get some just pure titanium white. And I'm just using the very, very tip of this brush just to create little dots. So these could be tiny little daisies, just sort of sparkling in the light. But it's up to you. You could do whatever colour you want, or you could do just the orange ones. You don't have to have the white ones if you don't want to. So we're just going to make a couple of them, and again, all different heights. Some big, some small, some bunched together. There we go. Let's have a few just here. I think this is a bit more exciting than just painting a big rock on this corner. And it covers another thing. So if you're ever painting like a meadow or grass, it's an easy technique to use. So now we've got that blocked in, let's work on our tree. So let's mix a base colour for our trunk first. So let's get some raw umber brown and some cobalt blue to make that nice shadow colour. So we're going to make that really nice shadow colour, and we're going to use a thin brush, and we're just going to outline our trunk and our big largest branch. So we're just using this shadow colour just to create the illusion of a big tree. Now my camera decided to turn itself off while I was filming, so excuse me. And I've painted a few branches with this brush, which is basically a very thin fine liner. So I'm just going to show you what I did. Basically, once I've painted those two large branches, I just used a very thin fine liner to come off from it and create really spindly branches. Now again, just like the fan brush, this brush makes your life so much easier for painting fine detail. You can normally buy them in a brush multi-pack. All they are is just an elongated bristle to create a really, really sharp, thin brush. And all you do is you've got the same colour as what we used for the big branch. We just create little spindly branches coming off it. So I'll show you in a minute once we start painting up the tree. And then I was going to use a colour called magenta, but it ran out and dried up. So I must have had the gremlins in. My camera's not working and my paint has run out. So we're going to skip that colour. So excuse me again. And we're going to use bright pink. So rose pink here. So what we've got a bright pink and we've got a lighter pink. So we're just going to use one without any white in it. And all we're going to do, just like we did with our wild flowers, we're just going to use this really, really bright pink to start painting in cherry blossom. So again, you don't normally get a cherry blossom on a cliff top, but I thought it looks pretty and I like pink. And someone asked me to paint one, so I thought, why not? I think it's cool and I think it's pretty. We did the Bougainvillea, I hope that's how you pronounce it, sort of Mediterranean village the other day, didn't we? Which was a lovely scene, and it had these pink petals. And I think it's really gorgeous. I love cherry blossoms. And it's coming into spring, so why not? So what I'm doing, I'm going on to those little elongated branches that we've just painted in, and I'm just splatting it. Look, I'm just tapping this pink paint to again try to create random little shapes. So you get little clumps of flowers sometimes in the middle of branches. But again, we're trying to make them at the end of the branches. Look, so right at the end of these thin branches. And we're trying to not bunch them all together. So look, we're trying to have little dots, leaving gaps in between. And just coming out at all different angles, all different shapes and sizes. So we've got this lovely bright pink. So let's do a few on the edge of these ones. So a lot of the painting tutorials, as I keep trying to say to you, is mixing colours and the brushes you use. And you don't have to spend a lot. You don't have to go out and spend a fortune on these things. As I say, you can buy like a multi-pack of brushes with a fan brush, one of these fine liners, and the one we just used for the branches, and you can literally get one of them for about £5 to £10 or $5 to $10. So you don't have to spend a lot. And by learning which brush to use at different times on different jobs, it will make your life so much easier. And quick as well. It's so easy because you can cheat, which we like. Anything that makes your life easier is better. So there we go, look, we've got our lovely pink blossom in. So that's looking groovy. So now we're going to mix a lighter colour. We're just going to add white to that mix. So I've got one pre-mixed because I'm lazy. But all we do is just add a little bit of white to your bright pink. And you should get this lovely sort of pastel pink, which is gorgeous. So what we're trying to do, just like we did with the flowers, we're trying to lay a darker colour, and then we're trying to use lighter colours around it to again imply texture and again apply petals. So it looks like some petals are getting sunlight and some are more in the shade getting covered by other petals. So it's just a trick by using different shades of the same colour. We can start building up this tree and make our cherry blossom look really pretty. So there we go. And I think with painting, it's meant to be relaxing. You're meant to go somewhere off in your mind and relax. So this could be a real place where you can go and take a nice chilled vacation. In England at the moment, it's snowing, which is crazy. It was snowing yesterday, and then all the rain came and washed it all away. So it's just been grey and miserable. So painting a nice picture like this cheers me up. So there we go. So we're doing the exact same technique. We're just going around the darker colour, trying to be as random, create these splats. She's starting to take shape. So again, take your time. Just go at your own speed. You can use this trick when painting normal trees. So you could just use different shades of green. You could have, like we did with the grass, a darker green and a lighter green. So it's the same trick. You're just building up the leaves using different shades. So let's have some just here in the sunlight. But that's why I didn't want to have too many clouds on the left hand side, because obviously we're going to cover a lot of this up with the cherry blossom. And now we've got these ones on the right, that's pushing them back and making them look really far off into the distance, which is pretty. And then again, we're going to add more white to our pink, and we're going to make an even more pastel pink. So these are the petals that are really getting lots of sunlight. So we've got this really lovely pastel pink. And then we're just going to do the same trick. So we're just going to try, I think, where the sunlight's coming, and more on the right side. I'm just adding this really bright light pink. And again, just like, I know it's repeating the same old, but if you find, just like when we did the clouds, if you find if your light pink dries a bit flat and absorbs some of the darker pink, you can always go over it twice. So it looks really vibrant now while I'm splatting and putting the paint down, but in half an hour, once it's dry, sometimes it dries a bit flat, so you can always go over it a second time. Only takes 2 minutes and it will make it look a little bit more pretty. So I'm just trying to work out if the light's coming from the right. I'm leaving some little gaps for those shadows to shine through, and it's making it look nice and 3D. So we've got this lovely blossom. And let's have some here in the sun. I'm hopefully going to do one of Greenwich Park, because they have these gorgeous cherry blossom trees in the park. So hopefully I'm going to take some reference photos and do a nice park scene with some cherry blossoms for a tutorial. So let's have some here in the sunlight, just gleaming. Here we go. And then I'm going to get some of this bright pink, and I'm just going to get some of the different shades, and I'm just going to tie the two areas together by putting some little pink flowers in amongst these orange and white ones. I just want to tie the two areas together because they're a bit, because they're contrasting colours, it kind of makes them look very separate. So by just using some of the pink, this could be some of the blossom falling down, or it could be just little pink flowers, why not? But I just want to tie the two areas together. So again, look, I'm just using the dark shade first of pink, and then I'm just using the lighter shade. But I'm doing the exact same technique, some big, some small, just different angles. So it's looking pretty. Let's have some hanging off the edge. And then let's have a think. Let's get some and just put them right on this edge with the whiter, lighter pink, because they're in the sunlight. And some up here, just hanging over. That looks pretty. And then I'm going to get some of that brown that we made earlier, which was raw umber brown and white, a tiny bit of orange and a tiny bit of cobalt blue. So raw umber brown, lots of white, and a tiny bit of orange and a tiny bit of cobalt blue. And I'm just going to use my sharp brush again, and I'm just going to put some bark on my tree on the right hand side. So this side is going to be in the sunlight, so it's going to have a nice bright highlight. So by just using a warmer colour, because it's got a little bit of orange in the colour, we can imply heat from the sun hitting that side of the tree. So we're just going down the right hand side, just giving it a nice highlight. Still leaving plenty of that dark colour underneath to shine through. And then you can make a dark colour, so you can have more cobalt blue to make it cooler, and it makes it more grey. Look, so we've got a warm and a dark, and we just do the opposite side. So just think of yin and yang when painting. It's the easiest way to think of it. If you have one side that's warm, the other side is cold. So if one side's in the sunlight, the other one's in the shade. And you just use the appropriate colours, and it just texturizes your tree. Just makes it less flat. There we go. And then let's get some blue and some red. And I'm going to show you how to make this iris purple that I always use in the tutorials. So if you use cobalt blue and some cad red, and then add lots and lots of white, you should get a similar purple. It's a nice pastel cool purple. And all we're going to do, just here on the left hand side, we're just going to put some shade on the blossom, because this side's getting less sun. So it could have hanging over branches and things like that, just giving it a bit of shade. So again, same technique. We're just trying to texturize our blossom. And we won't go too far right, we'll just do it up to about here, because we want the other bits to be in the sun. And I'm just going to get some of the really dark brown and cobalt blue that we used for the original shadow colour, and I'm just going to outline these branches a little bit more. Where we've done the highlights, it's not got a really harsh outline, so I'm just outlining them a bit, just to make them look a little bit darker. The same here. So I think now that we've darkened up some of these branches, it just made them a bit more bold. I think why not have a few bushes and branches just here joining this area up. So again, you can have some broken ones, just where you have like broken sticks and bits of branches and bits of bushes just joining into that grass. Have some overhanging. And let's have sort of little branches coming off here. And then you can always put some flowers, cover them up a bit. And then let's swap back to that brush. So this is how I was painting the branches in earlier. I was just using this really elongated brush. So it's really good for these thin branches, look. So you could have some dead branches just hanging over. You can almost make like paper thin branches. So they're great for the end of trees. And let's have a few coming up here. And we could do some actually on in between our cherry blossoms, just to create some realism. Look, so I can use these really, really fine branches. So they're pencil thin. They are so thin. I'm just coming off the edges just to make them really realistic. And then I've dropped a load of paint right in the middle of my painting. But the great thing about acrylics is if you dry your work in stages. So if you're ever nervous, dry your work before attempting something. And then if you make a mistake, say with one of the branches, or you just don't like it, you can just wipe it away. And your lovely painting is still dry underneath. So you don't have to rework it. So if you're ever using dark colours, such as doing these branches or blacks or anything like that, and you're a bit nervous, just dry your work with the hairdryer before you attempt it, and have a baby wipe next to you. And then if you do make a mistake, you can just correct it and just wipe away the paint. So look, all we're doing, we're just using this really fine brush, just relaxing, try to have a steady hand. Let's have one here. Whoops. See, look, I just made a big splodge. Let's get me a baby wipe. wipe it away, and it was like it was never there. And I can just use that sharp edge just to make it nice and spindly. There we go. No one would ever notice. And then let's just have some of the lighter blossom, that really pale pink, just on the very edges, hanging over the water. Again, just to create some realism. Just on the edges of here. And then I think let's get some white, and let's get some of that electric blue, which was cerulean blue and a little bit of turquoise. So lots of white, tiny bit of cerulean blue and a tiny bit of turquoise. And what we're going to do, we're going to start making our cove a little bit more exciting. So when the water comes in, this is all shallow water, it creates loads of bubbles around the rocks. You know, where it sort of bunches into the rocks, and you get sort of sea foam and bubbles. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go around our rocks and just create that sort of illusion. So if there's a rock here, we're just going to have some sea foam going around it, where the current is sort of taking it into the cove. So we're just putting it in between the rocks, and then it can be sort of going out into the ocean, just creating a little bit of a wave and some wash. The same here with these little rocks. And there's one here in the middle, isn't there? So let's not leave you out. Let's put some dots. And then let's put some shimmer in the water. I'm not going to do the whole ocean, but I'm just going to show you how you do it. We're just going to create some wiggles in the ocean with the very thin brush. And we're just creating wiggles to create sort of shimmer in the water. As it gets more shallow, you get that sort of lovely glare in the water, don't you? So let's just make some shimmers. And then what we're going to do, let's have just some more just up here. So just create some zigzags. So that water sort of bunches all together as it gets more shallow. And then I'm just going to smooth it with my fingers, just so it's not as prominent, so it's not as harsh. And just have some coming sideways. So all we're trying to imply is all the water sort of scrunching in as it hits the beach. And let's say, if you don't like anything, you can always use a baby wipe and just take it away, or use your fingers to make it less harsh. We just want it really subtle, barely noticeable. And now we're just going to create the wash as it comes into the beach. So I'm just using a thick edge here. I'm just making a nice thick edge, a bit like when we paint the sea in the tutorials. And I'm just going to create some zigzags of bubbles and foam coming off that edge. So let's get lots of paint on my brush to make it nice and thick. And let's just create some of these little zigzags and splats. There we go. So this could be the water sort of receding back. Coming in here. Now, because we've used the white with the cerulean blue and the turquoise, I'm just going over it with slightly a bit more white. So I'm just using some white just on the edges of these rocks. Just here. just again to have it a little sparkling in the light, just in the sunlight. So just this edge, just going to make it a little bit brighter. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some white to make some flowers just here on these rickety old broken bushes, just to make them look a bit more exciting, just so they don't look so grumpy and boring. So I'm just using pure titanium white just on the edges, just to make these flowers look like they're getting the sunlight. And then the same just on the very tips of my blossom, I'm just using titanium white. If it looks a bit too bright, you can always just dip it in some pink, as I was saying earlier, just to make that light pink look a little bit lighter. But the white should absorb some of the pink, so it should sort of blend. So look, you can use a little bit of pink just to blend it, just so it's not so harsh. So we just want to have these areas of the cherry blossom just sparkling in the sun. And then I'm just going to get some yellow and green. So yellow and green to create a lime colour, sort of an olive colour. And just here on this very tip, I'm just going to make this, get some of the sun, just make this a little bit brighter. Just all the little finishing touches that make all the painting come together. So there we go, and just let that run out. So it just looks like that corner is bright. And I think she's finished. So I've signed her in the bottom left hand corner. So you've learned how to paint this gorgeous cove. You've learned how to paint a sky and push it back. We've learned a really cool trick with cobalt blue to paint far off cliff tops and mountains, and how to use darker colours to bring rocks and things nearer to you. You've learned how to paint wildflowers and push the cliff near to you, and paint a beautiful cherry blossom tree. So a bit of a combination. We've got this lovely beach. We've got this lovely sort of beautiful area. A nice relaxing seafront acrylic painting tutorial. So thank you guys for watching, and thank you for painting along at home with me. My name is Murray. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, because the more people who like and subscribe, the more other artists get to see the videos. And hopefully we'll do a nice tutorial for you guys this week, and we'll get cracking on that one. So happy painting everyone. Take care. Bye.